The coat that wasn't a parachute. On February 4th, 1912, a tailor named Franz Reichelt climbed onto the first platform of the Eiffel Tower. He had spent years designing a wearable parachute suit, a kind of coat with wings built into the fabric. He had tested it before, on dummies dropped from his apartment building, with mixed results. He told officials he only planned to test it on a mannequin from the tower. There was one problem. He had no intention of doing that. He stepped up onto the railing in front of a small crowd and reporters. He hesitated for several seconds. Then he jumped. The suit did not open. He fell for several seconds before hitting the ground near the base of the tower. He had asked to prove his invention worked before he had proven it did. Flying car. In 1973, an engineer named Henry Smolinski was testing his own invention, a car built to also fly, made by attaching the body of a Ford Pinto to the wings and tail of a small aircraft. He called it the Ave Mazar. The idea was simple: drive to the airport, attach the flight unit, take off, then detach the wings again once you landed and drive home. There was one problem. The wing strut that held the flight unit to the car body was not built for the stress of an actual flight. On September 11th, 1973, during a test flight over Oxnard, California, the right wing strut separated from the car mid-air. The vehicle rolled and crashed. Both men on board were killed. The flying car never made it past the prototype stage. The rope and pulley Thomas Midgley Jr. was one of the most influential chemists of the 20th century, credited with developing leaded gasoline and the refrigerant chemicals later found to damage the ozone layer. In the 1940s, he contracted polio, which left him with limited mobility. Being an inventor, he devised a system of ropes and pulleys attached to his bed to help lift himself in and out of it without assistance. There was one problem with the design. On November 2, 1944, he became entangled in the ropes of his own device. He was unable to free himself. He died of strangulation, caught in the very machine he had built to make his life easier. Unbreakable. Gary Hoy was a lawyer working on the 24th floor of the Toronto Dominion Centre. He liked to demonstrate to colleagues and visiting law students that the building's windows were unbreakable, made of specially reinforced glass. His method was to run at the window and throw his shoulder into it. He had done this demonstration many times before without incident. On July 9, 1993, he did it again in front of a group of students. There was one problem. The glass held exactly as advertised. It did not shatter. Instead, it popped loose from its frame, with Hoy still pressed against it. He fell 24 floors to his death. The window, colleagues later noted, was recovered intact. The barrel Carol Susek was a professional stuntman who had already survived one of the most dangerous stunts in the world, going over Niagara Falls sealed inside a padded barrel in July 1984. He walked away with only minor injuries and became something of a celebrity for it. The following year, he planned an even bigger show. He would be dropped in the same barrel from the roof of the Houston Astrodome into a small tank of water on the arena floor, in front of a live audience. There was one problem with the calculations. On January 20th, 1985, the barrel was released and struck the edge of the water tank instead of landing squarely inside it. Suchek died from his injuries shortly after. The stunt that was supposed to prove Niagara was no fluke ended his life instead. Over the falls, Robert Overacker was a professional stunt performer who wanted to raise awareness for the homeless by jet skiing over Niagara Falls and parachuting to safety at the bottom. On October 1st, 1995, he rode his jet ski off the edge of the falls in front of a crowd of tourists. The plan depended on one crucial step happening automatically once he was airborne. There was one problem. The parachute he was counting on to deploy failed to open. He plunged roughly 180 feet into the gorge below. He did not survive the fall. The cause he wanted attention for got far less coverage than the stunt that killed him. The Glider Man. Otto Lilienthal was one of the first people in history to make repeated, controlled glider flights, earning him the nickname the Flying Man in the German press of the 1890s. He had completed close to 2,000 flights by the time he took off on August 9, 1896, near Berlin, in one of his standard glider designs. There was one problem that day. A sudden gust of wind stalled the glider mid-flight. Lilienthal lost control and fell approximately 50 feet to the ground. He suffered a broken spine and died the following day. The The man who had done more than almost anyone to prove human flight was possible did not live to see it fully realized. The Harness Owen Hart was a professional wrestler known for his in-ring skill and for entrances that sometimes involved theatrical stunts. For a match on May 23, 1999, at a pay-per-view event in Kansas City, he was set to be lowered from the arena rafters on a harness as part of a superhero-style entrance he had performed before with adjustments. There was one problem with the release mechanism. As he was being lowered, it triggered early. He fell approximately 70 feet, landing in the ring in front of the live crowd. He was pronounced dead at the hospital that night. The show, after a pause, continued. The lawn chair. In 1982, a truck driver named Larry Walters wanted to fly, so he built his own aircraft out of a lawn chair, 45 weather balloons, and a supply of bottled water for ballast. He anchored it to his Jeep in San Pedro, California, planning to rise a short distance and enjoy the view. There was one problem with his math. When his friends cut the tether, the chair shot upward far faster and farther than expected, carrying him miles into the sky, into the approach path of Los Angeles International Airport. Commercial pilots radioed in reports of a man in a lawn chair at cruising altitude. He eventually shot out several balloons with a pellet gun and descended safely, landing in a Long Beach neighborhood. He survived. The Federal Aviation Administration fined him for violating controlled airspace. The rocket that didn't reach. On September 8, 1974, the stunt performer Evel Knievel attempted to jump the Snake River Canyon in Twin Falls, Idaho, using a steam-powered rocket called the SkyCycle X2, built specifically for the attempt. Thousands of spectators gathered to watch. There was one problem with the launch. The parachute deployed almost immediately after liftoff, before the rocket had traveled far enough to clear the canyon. Instead of soaring across, the SkyCycle drifted slowly back down into the canyon itself, landing near the water's edge, dangerously close to the river below. Knievel survived with only minor injuries. The jump that was supposed to be his most famous became famous for a different reason entirely. That's 10 stories, 10 warnings nobody heeded, and one running theme. If you build it yourself, test it more than once. New compilations like this one drop regularly, so subscribe if you don't want to miss the next batch of bad ideas.